Imagine standing in a river, fighting against the current, exhausting yourself just to stay in place. That's what most of us do with life. We cling to what's leaving, we chase what's not ready, and we try to control what was never meant to be controlled. But here's the truth. The current was never your enemy, your resistance was. The moment you stop fighting, the river carries you effortlessly to where you were meant to go. Letting go isn't about losing control, it's about discovering a deeper kind of peace. The peace that comes from trust. The peace that whispers, you don't have to force anything. What's meant for you is already making its way to you, and when you finally release your grip, something magical happens. Life begins to flow again. This is the power of surrender. This is when the universe begins to work with you, not against you. 1. The weight you carry is the one you refuse to release. We often wonder why peace feels so far away, why even in moments of quiet, our hearts still feel restless and heavy. The truth is, we carry far more than we realize. We carry the weight of words left unsaid, of people we tried to fix, of mistakes we replay over and over in our minds. We hold on to what hurt us because we think if we keep remembering it, we can somehow prevent it from happening again. But in doing so, we imprison ourselves in the very pain we're trying to escape. Letting go doesn't mean pretending it never happened. It doesn't mean erasing memories or denying emotions. It means choosing to stop giving them the power to define you. Every person who has hurt you, every disappointment, every regret, they are not meant to be lifelong burdens. They are lessons, chapters in your story, not the whole book. Yet most people live stuck on one page, rereading their pain as if it still holds the answers. The Buddha taught that attachment is the root of suffering, and attachment is not only about people, it's about our ideas, our plans, our need for control, our obsession with how life should be. When we hold on too tightly to how we think things must go, we blind ourselves to how beautifully they could unfold if we just allowed them to. The more you cling, the more you suffer, because nothing in this world was made to stay. Everything, your thoughts, your emotions, your relationships, moves in cycles. Imagine carrying a bag filled with stones everywhere you go. Each stone represents something you refuse to let go of. Guilt, anger, expectations, old dreams that no longer fit who you are. At first, it feels manageable, but over time, the weight becomes unbearable. You get tired, not because life is cruel, but because you refuse to set the bag down. Letting go is simply putting the bag down. It's saying, I no longer need to carry what's already complete. The past has already served its purpose. It taught you, shaped you, and pushed you toward growth. But holding on to it keeps you stuck in the same emotional vibration, unable to rise to where life wants to take you next. You can't walk into a new chapter carrying the baggage of the old one. It's like trying to fly while gripping the ground. The moment you release the heaviness, the resentment, the what-ifs, the endless mental replay of things gone wrong, you create room for new energy to enter. And here lies the paradox. The moment you let go of what you thought you needed, life gives you exactly what you truly need. When you stop chasing closure, you find peace. When you stop demanding explanations, you find understanding. When you stop clinging to people who've already walked their path, you meet new souls meant for your next stage of growth. Letting go doesn't make you cold or indifferent. It makes you free. It allows your heart to breathe again. It teaches you that peace is not found in holding on tightly. It's found in loosening your grip and trusting that what's meant for you will never require you to suffer to keep it. Once you drop what's heavy, life doesn't punish you for moving on. It rewards you with lightness, clarity, and the quiet joy that comes when you finally realize you were never meant to carry it all in the first place. 2. Surrender is not weakness, it's wisdom. Most people grow up believing that surrender means defeat. From a young age, we're taught to fight for everything. to resist, to push harder, to never give up. And while persistence has its place, life is not always a battle to be won. Sometimes it's a river that must be flowed with. The deeper truth, often hidden behind our obsession with control, is that surrender is not about losing power. It's about discovering a higher kind of strength. It's the strength that comes from trust, from understanding that the universe already knows the path even when we do not. When you surrender, you are not saying, "I give up." You are saying, "I trust that life is wiser than my fears." You stop fighting the current and allow it to carry you toward what's meant for you. This kind of surrender doesn't make you passive. It makes you peaceful. It shifts your energy from anxiety to awareness. You begin to respond to life, not react to it. You realize that the storm outside you was never as powerful as the calm you can cultivate within. Think of how the ocean moves. Waves crash, tides shift, and yet the ocean never resists the wind or the moon that pulls it. It surrenders to the rhythm of nature, and in doing so, it becomes one of the most powerful forces on Earth. The same applies to us. When we stop fighting against what we cannot control, people's opinions, outcomes, timing, endings, we find an inner flow that no obstacle can block. Surrender is wisdom because it acknowledges reality. It's saying, "This is what is, and I can meet it with peace." Instead of demanding life follow your script, you trust that there's a greater story unfolding, one that you may not yet understand, but that will one day make perfect sense. Every disappointment, every delay, every redirection, all of it becomes a thread in a pattern far more beautiful than the one you would have created alone. The ego hates surrender because it wants to be in charge. It wants to control outcomes and predict the future. But the soul knows that control is an illusion. The more you force life to fit your expectations, the more exhausted you become. The more you let life unfold naturally, the more aligned you feel. That's why true surrender brings freedom. It liberates you from the endless cycle of trying to manipulate what was never yours to manage in the first place. When you learn to surrender, you begin to see how life gently supports you. The right opportunities appear, the right people enter, and the right lessons find you. You no longer chase, you attract. You no longer beg, you believe. You no longer panic when plans change. You trust that something greater is guiding you. Surrender opens the door for miracles, not because you stopped caring, but because you finally stepped out of your own way. Remember this: water never forces its path, yet it always finds its way. It flows around rocks, through mountains, across deserts, quietly, patiently, persistently. That's the essence of surrender. It's flexible, soft, and yet unstoppable. When you embody that energy, life starts moving in your favor. What once felt impossible suddenly becomes effortless. What once drained you now teaches you. What once broke you now builds you. Surrender isn't the end of effort. It's the beginning of alignment. It's realizing that peace isn't found in controlling life, but in trusting it. The more you let go of resistance, the more you realize that life was never against you. It was always guiding you toward exactly where you were meant to be. 3. Life unfolds perfectly in its own timing. One of the hardest truths to accept is that life has its own rhythm, and it rarely moves according to our plans. We live in an age of impatience. We want results now, healing now, answers now. But the universe doesn't rush anything, because what is real takes time to grow. Flowers don't bloom overnight. Rivers don't carve valleys in a day. The most beautiful transformations happen in silence, in seasons where it seems like nothing is happening at all. Yet, beneath the surface, everything is preparing, aligning, and forming in ways we cannot yet see. When you finally let go of the idea that things must happen on your schedule, you start to see how gracefully life arranges itself. The rejection you cried over months ago may have been the redirection that saved you. The delay that frustrated you may have been the universe buying you time to grow stronger before handing you what you asked for. Timing is not punishment, it's protection. The Buddha taught that everything arises and ceases at the perfect moment, not a second too early, not a breath too late. Your only task is to be present enough to recognize it when it arrives. Impatience is born from fear, the fear that if you don't push, you'll be forgotten, the fear that if you don't control, you'll miss your destiny. But life doesn't forget you. The universe hasn't overlooked you. It's simply preparing the conditions that allow your blessings to sustain themselves. Think of a seed underground. For months it appears lifeless, buried in darkness. But within that hidden space, roots are forming, strength is building, and when the time is right, it rises effortlessly toward the light. Forcing it to bloom before it's ready would only destroy it. The same is true for you. When you're caught in waiting, it's easy to believe that nothing is moving. But silence is not stillness, it's gestation. The universe is always working, weaving connections, and adjusting paths in ways that are invisible to your eyes, but deeply intelligent to your soul. Every detour, every pause, every no is an act of unseen grace, guiding you towards something better aligned with your spirit. Trusting this rhythm is the heart of wisdom. It transforms anxiety into peace, confusion into clarity, and waiting into faith. The irony is that when you stop trying to rush, you actually arrive faster, not in time, but in readiness. Because it's not about when things happen, it's about who you've become when they do. A blessing received too soon can feel like a burden, but one that meets you in maturity becomes a miracle. Life's timing is never wrong. It's just teaching you patience, and patience is the language through which the universe speaks to the wise. So instead of asking, "Why is this taking so long?" try asking, "What is this time trying to teach me?" Maybe it's teaching you to slow down, to appreciate the journey instead of the destination. Maybe it's giving you the solitude needed to rediscover yourself. Maybe it's preparing you for something you couldn't handle yet. Once you start viewing delays not as denials but as divine preparation, your entire perception changes. You stop doubting and start aligning. You stop hurrying and start flowing. Remember this: when you trust life's timing, you no longer chase. You receive. You no longer panic. You prepare. You no longer look backward in regret or forward in desperation. You stand exactly where you are and realize that this moment too is sacred. The path you walk is unfolding with precision, even when you can't see the full picture. One day, you'll look back and realize everything happened exactly as it needed to. Every heartbreak, every pause, every turn. And you'll understand that life was never late. It was always right on time. 4. Letting go of control invites miracles. We live in a world that worships control. From the moment we wake up, we try to manage everything: our image, our schedule, our relationships, our outcomes. We believe that if we can just plan perfectly, life will bend to our will. But the more we try to control life, the more it slips through our fingers. The truth is, control is an illusion that the ego clings to because it fears uncertainty. The soul, however, understands something much deeper. The unknown is not your enemy. It's the space where miracles are born. When you cling too tightly to how things must happen, you close the door to how they could happen. You limit the infinite intelligence of the universe to your narrow expectations. You say, "It has to look this way, arrive at this time, and follow this plan." But life doesn't follow your checklist. It follows your energy. The moment you stop trying to manipulate every detail, you allow that energy to move freely. You stop swimming against the current and begin floating with it. Suddenly, what once felt forced begins to flow, and the very thing you were chasing starts finding its way toward you. The Buddha often taught that suffering arises when we try to control what is uncontrollable. Think about it. We can't control the weather, the thoughts of others, the passage of time, or even what tomorrow may bring. Yet we exhaust ourselves trying to force life to match our desires. The result? Anxiety, disappointment, and burnout. Letting go doesn't mean giving up or becoming careless. It means trusting that life's intelligence knows what it's doing. Just as a river doesn't need your permission to reach the sea, life doesn't need your control to unfold beautifully. When you let go, you make room for synchronicity, the mysterious alignment of events that seem too perfect to be coincidence. Maybe you've experienced it before, a random encounter that changes everything, an opportunity that appears when you stop obsessing, or a sudden clarity that arrives after months of confusion. These are not accidents. They are signs that the universe is responding to your energy, not your effort. You were never meant to force your path, you were meant to align with it. Letting go of control also frees your mind from constant tension. You stop living in what-ifs and start living in what is. You begin to notice beauty where before there was only pressure. You realize that life has always been on your side. You were just too busy fighting it to notice. Think of how flowers bloom. They don't struggle or chase the sun. They simply open when the time is right, and the sunlight finds them. You are no different. The more you trust the process, the more naturally things fall into place. Most people think that if they stop controlling, everything will fall apart. But the opposite happens. Everything begins to align, because control is rooted in fear, while surrender is rooted in faith. When you let go, you send a signal to the universe that you trust its wisdom more than your worry. You stop saying, "I know what's best," and start saying, "Show me what's best." This shift changes everything. It replaces anxiety with curiosity, desperation with patience, and fear with freedom. You'll notice that once you release control, peace begins to enter quietly. You start sleeping better, breathing easier, and feeling lighter. You no longer panic when plans change, because you know that what's meant for you can't be lost. You stop chasing people who don't see your worth, because you trust that those meant for you will never need convincing. You stop fearing the future because you begin to see it not as something to survive, but as something to explore. There's an ancient Buddhist saying, "Let go or be dragged," and that's exactly how life works. The more you resist what's happening, the more suffering you create. The moment you release your grip, everything begins to move again. Your path clears, your mind calms, and the right doors open effortlessly. What you once begged for now comes naturally, not because you forced it, but because you finally allowed it. The greatest miracles in life rarely happen under your control. They happen in the moments when you let go and trust. When you surrender your need to manage every detail, you make space for life to surprise you, and it will. You'll meet people you never expected, discover strengths you didn't know you had, and find joy in places you once overlooked. That is the power of letting go. It's not the end of effort, it's the beginning of alignment. So the next time life doesn't go according to plan, don't tighten your grip, loosen it. Take a breath, step back, trust that something greater is unfolding, even if you can't see it yet. Because when you finally stop trying to control everything, you'll realize that life was never against you. It was always working with you, waiting for you to trust enough to let it. And it's in that sacred space of surrender that miracles begin to appear, quietly, beautifully, and perfectly timed. 5. The peace you seek begins where resistance ends. We often believe that peace will come when life finally stops testing us. When problems disappear, people change, or everything falls perfectly into place. But peace doesn't depend on what's happening around you. It depends on what's happening within you. And one of the greatest realizations on the spiritual path is this: peace begins the moment you stop resisting what is. Resistance is not strength. It's the mind's attempt to control reality. It's the voice that says, "This shouldn't be happening." But life is happening right here, right now. The more you argue with it, the more you suffer. The Buddha once said, "Pain is inevitable. Suffering is optional. Pain is what life gives you, a broken heart, a failed plan, an unexpected change. Suffering is what the mind adds on top, the replaying, the judging, the endless stories of why me. Resistance is the gap between what you want and what is. And the greater that gap, the greater your suffering. You can't stop the waves from coming, but you can learn to surf. That's what acceptance is, not passive resignation, but conscious participation in the present moment. When something painful happens, the first reaction of the mind is to push it away. We deny, we suppress, we distract ourselves. But anything you resist grows stronger. Every emotion you avoid waits patiently for your attention. The moment you stop running and simply allow yourself to feel, you begin to heal. Acceptance doesn't mean you approve of everything that happens. It means you stop giving it power to destroy your peace. It's the quiet recognition that this too belongs. Imagine life as a river. Resistance is trying to swim upstream, exhausting, frustrating, and futile. Acceptance is turning around and allowing the current to carry you. The current doesn't erase the rocks or remove the bends. It simply takes you around them with less struggle. You still move forward, but you do it with grace instead of force. That's what inner peace feels like, the art of moving with life instead of against it. Most of us have been conditioned to equate acceptance with weakness. We think that if we accept something, it means we've given up. But the opposite is true. Acceptance is courage. It's facing reality without filters, without denial, without the armor of how it should be. When you accept the present moment, you take back your power. You're no longer a victim of life. You become a participant in it. From that space, even pain becomes a teacher, and every challenge becomes a doorway to deeper understanding. Resistance shows up in many forms. It's in the irritation you feel when things don't go your way, the frustration of waiting for someone to change, the tension of trying to control outcomes, the resentment toward what already happened. Every time you say, "This shouldn't have happened," you're building a wall between yourself and peace. The truth is, life doesn't operate according to your preferences. It moves by its own intelligence, an intelligence far greater than our human understanding. When you surrender to that flow, peace is no longer something you chase. It becomes something you are. Acceptance is not a single act. It's a practice. It's learning to meet every moment with an open heart. To say, "Even this has something to teach me." To breathe into discomfort instead of resisting it. To listen instead of reacting. It's the realization that peace isn't found by fixing everything, but by allowing things to be as they are, while you remain still inside. The storm may rage around you, but your awareness, your consciousness, is the sky that holds it all. The clouds pass, the sky remains. When you live in acceptance, something magical happens. Life stops feeling like a battle and starts feeling like a dance. You move in rhythm with what is, no longer wasting energy fighting against the inevitable. Even difficulties become lighter because you no longer add mental resistance to them. When you lose something, you grieve but don't collapse. When plans fall apart, you adjust instead of breaking. You begin to trust that everything is happening for you, not to you. The moment you release resistance, peace enters naturally, not as an effort, but as a byproduct of alignment. You realize that peace was never missing, it was only hidden beneath the noise of your resistance. Just as a pond becomes clear when the water stops stirring, your heart becomes calm when the mind stops struggling. That's when you begin to see life as it truly is, not as a series of problems to solve, but as a mystery to experience. So when things fall apart, instead of asking, "Why me?" ask, "What is life trying to show me through this?" That single shift transforms pain into growth and chaos into clarity. Because peace isn't the absence of challenges, it's the ability to remain centered through them. The most peaceful people aren't those who avoid storms. They are those who've learned to stand still in the rain. They understand that what you resist persists, and what you embrace dissolves. To find peace, stop fighting life. Stop demanding that everything be different before you can rest. You don't need the world to calm down. You need to calm down within the world. The moment you stop resisting the present moment, life begins to unfold effortlessly. And then you realize something profound. Peace was never lost. It was always here, quietly waiting for you to stop fighting and finally feel it. 6. Detachment frees you to experience true love. We live in a world that confuses attachment with love. From a young age, we are taught that love means holding tightly, protecting fiercely, and never letting go. We cling to people, outcomes, dreams, and identities as if they define who we are. Yet the more tightly we hold, the more life slips through our fingers. True love, whether for another person, a dream, or yourself, cannot exist where fear, control, or dependency live. True love begins only when you learn the art of detachment, not from apathy, but from awareness. Detachment doesn't mean you stop caring. It doesn't mean you isolate yourself or reject emotion. It means you love from a place of freedom, not fear. You appreciate without needing to possess. You give without expecting anything in return. You allow others to be as they are without trying to mold them into what you want. It's the realization that nothing in this world truly belongs to you. Not people, not possessions, not even the version of yourself you cling to. Everything is borrowed, everything changes, and the more you accept that, the more peace and beauty you find in the present moment. The Buddha taught that attachment is the cause of suffering because attachment is rooted in illusion. It says, "If I can just keep this, I'll be happy." But life is impermanent. The people you love will change, the situations you depend on will shift, and even the body you inhabit will one day return to the earth. When you cling to what must change, you create resistance and pain. When you allow life to move, to breathe, to evolve, you become one with its flow. Detachment, therefore, is not the rejection of life, but the acceptance of its constant movement. Think of holding water in your hands. If you close your fist, the water escapes through your fingers. But if you keep your hand open, the water remains, still and gentle. Love works the same way. The tighter you try to hold it, the quicker it slips away. But when you love openly, without trying to control, manipulate, or own, you allow love to stay, not as possession, but as presence. Detachment also means letting go of the need for others to validate you. Many people mistake attention for love or dependence for connection. But when your happiness depends entirely on how someone else acts, you've handed them control over your peace. Detachment is reclaiming that power. It's realizing that your worth isn't determined by anyone else's approval. You can love deeply and still remain whole within yourself. You can give your heart without losing your center. That's not coldness, that's clarity. In relationships, detachment transforms chaos into harmony. It means you no longer need to win every argument, prove every point, or control every outcome. You love people as they are, not as you imagine they should be. You understand that everyone is walking their own path, guided by their own lessons. You can walk beside them with compassion, but you no longer carry the impossible burden of saving them. When you release that weight, you make space for genuine connection, a love built not on dependency, but on mutual respect and freedom. Detachment also extends beyond relationships. It applies to your goals, your dreams, your identity. You can work passionately toward your vision without being crushed if it changes. You can aim high without collapsing when things take a different turn, because detachment teaches you something liberating. You can give your all and still be at peace if the outcome doesn't match your plan. You are no longer enslaved by success or failure because you understand that both are fleeting. What remains eternal is the calm awareness behind it all, the silent witness within you that simply observes and allows. When you practice detachment, you begin to love in a purer, lighter way. You no longer love because you need, you love because you are. Love stops being a transaction and becomes a state of being. You find joy in seeing others happy, even if their happiness no longer includes you. You wish people peace when they leave, rather than trying to hold them back. You trust that those meant for you will stay, not because you forced them to, but because your energy no longer suffocates them. That's the paradox of detachment. When you let go, what's truly meant for you returns naturally, without effort, without pain. In Buddhism, this is often described as non-attachment, the ability to live in the world without being consumed by it. It doesn't mean you stop experiencing joy, sadness, or love. It means you stop clinging to them. You experience fully and let go gracefully. You allow everything to come and go like waves on the shore, rising, falling, flowing. You don't fight the tide because you understand that even endings are not losses, but transitions. Each goodbye clears space for a new beginning. Each change teaches you how to love deeper, freer, truer. Detachment is also the doorway to self-love. When you detach from the need for perfection, from the constant comparison, from the expectations that society forces upon you, you finally meet yourself without judgment. You see your flaws without shame, your strengths without arrogance, your heart without fear. You begin to understand that nothing external, no person, no achievement, no status, can add to or subtract from your inner worth. You are already complete. You always were. And perhaps the most beautiful gift of detachment is peace. When you no longer chase what's leaving or cling to what's fading, your heart becomes light. You stop running after love and start radiating it. You stop fearing loss because you understand that nothing real can ever be lost. Love, peace, truth, these are not things to possess, they are states to awaken. Detachment helps you remember that. So love deeply but lightly. Hold softly, not tightly. Give everything your heart has to offer, but don't chain your soul in the process. The more you let go, the more love flows back to you, not in fragments, but in fullness. When you no longer fear the loss of love, you finally discover love that cannot be lost. That is the freedom detachment brings, the freedom to love without limits, to live without fear, and to rest in the quiet, knowing that what's meant for you will always find you, not because you chased it, but because you were ready to receive it. 7. The art of letting go is the art of living fully. Letting go is not a one-time act. It is a lifelong journey, a sacred practice, a way of being. Most people think letting go means losing something, a relationship, a dream, a past, a part of themselves. But the truth is the opposite. Letting go is not about losing, it's about gaining. It's about making space for what truly belongs, for what breathes, for what aligns. The art of letting go is, at its core, the art of living freely. And to live freely is to finally be at peace with the impermanence of all things. Every moment in life is asking you to release something, a thought that no longer serves you, a version of yourself you've outgrown, a memory that weighs on your heart, a future that never arrived. Yet, because we fear change, we hold on to identities, to plans, to people who've already left in spirit. We call it love or loyalty, but often it's fear in disguise. Fear of the unknown, fear of emptiness, fear that if we let go, there will be nothing left. But what if the emptiness isn't the end? What if it's the beginning? When you let go, you return to the flow of life. You stop being a prisoner of how things used to be and how they should be. You step into what is. And in that space, between what you've released and what's yet to arrive, something sacred happens. You rediscover yourself. You begin to hear the quiet voice beneath all the noise, the voice that whispers, You were never meant to carry all this. That voice is your soul calling you home. The mind is wired to cling, to stability, to familiarity, even when it hurts. We fear the unknown because the unknown asks for trust, and trust feels like falling. But the essence of letting go is exactly that. Falling, not into chaos, but into faith. Into the knowing that life has always caught you before, and it will again. Think of how a leaf detaches from the branch in autumn. It doesn't fight the wind or resist the season. It trusts the rhythm, knowing that falling is not dying, it's transformation. To master the art of letting go, you must understand that everything in this world is temporary. Every breath, every heartbeat, every sunrise, every season, every face you love. Nothing was designed to stay the same. And yet, this impermanence is not cruel. It's beautiful. It's what gives meaning to life. If nothing changed, there would be no growth, no evolution, no discovery. The flower is beautiful precisely because it fades. The sunset is breathtaking because it lasts only a few moments. Likewise, every chapter in your life holds beauty because it ends. The problem is, we often hold on to things long after their time has passed. We cling to old stories, old versions of ourselves, replaying them like broken records. We keep looking for closure, but closure doesn't come from the past. It comes from acceptance. The wound doesn't heal because you keep touching it. Healing begins when you stop asking why and start saying thank you. Thank you for the lessons. Thank you for the love. Thank you for the growth. Letting go then becomes an act of gratitude, not of loss. In Buddhism, the act of letting go is deeply connected to mindfulness, the ability to stay fully present. You can't let go of the past if your mind keeps living there. You can't welcome the future if your hands are full of yesterday's pain. Letting go is the practice of returning over and over again to the present moment. It's the gentle reminder that this moment, this breath, this heartbeat, this feeling is all that truly exists. And when you finally live here, in the now, you realize how much of life you've missed trying to control what's already gone or what hasn't arrived yet. There is a story of a monk who carried a heavy bag across a long bridge. When he reached the middle, his shoulders ached, his feet trembled, and he wanted to rest. But the bag held his possessions, everything he thought he needed. The bridge swayed, and he realized if he didn't let go, both he and the bag would fall. So he loosened his grip and watched the bag drop into the river below. For a moment, he felt loss, then lightness, then peace. With empty hands, he walked the rest of the way effortlessly. That's what letting go feels like. Scary at first, liberating forever. Letting go also means releasing control over outcomes. You can plant the seed, but you can't dictate the weather. You can love someone deeply, but you can't control how they love you back. You can work with passion, but you can't force success to arrive on your timeline. When you release the illusion of control, you step into the flow of life's greater intelligence. You begin to see how perfectly things unfold without your interference. Sometimes not getting what you wanted is life's way of protecting you from what you were not ready to receive. To let go fully, you must also let go of your need to always understand. Some things in life will never make sense from where you stand now. Heartbreaks, betrayals, losses that tear you apart. But one day, perhaps years later, you will look back and see the invisible threads connecting everything, the delays that were protection, the endings that were beginnings, the pain that sculpted your strength. That's the wisdom of letting go. It gives life the space to reveal its meaning in time. Letting go is also an act of forgiveness, not only toward others, but toward yourself. Forgiveness doesn't mean the past didn't happen. It means it no longer has power over you. You forgive because you deserve peace more than you deserve revenge. You let go not because they were right, but because carrying bitterness poisons your soul. When you release resentment, you return to yourself. You reclaim your energy. You stop being a prisoner of someone else's actions and begin living again. The art of letting go also teaches humility. You realize that not everything can be fixed. Not every person can be saved. Not every story needs a perfect ending. Sometimes, the most powerful thing you can do is to bow to life and say, "I surrender." In that surrender, you meet the truth that peace doesn't come from controlling life, but from trusting it. It's not about escaping the ups and downs, but embracing them as part of the dance. You stop asking life to be easier and start asking yourself to be softer. When you truly master letting go, something extraordinary happens. You stop fearing death. Because you see that everything in life is a small death leading to rebirth. The end of one dream makes space for another. The loss of one identity reveals a deeper self. The passing of one phase opens the door to something unseen. You understand that letting go is not an ending. It's the eternal rhythm of transformation that connects all living things. And this is the ultimate paradox. When you stop clinging, life clings to you. When you stop chasing, what's meant for you finds you effortlessly. When you stop fearing loss, you finally discover abundance. Because you're no longer living with your fists closed around the past. You're living with open hands, ready to receive whatever the present brings. So live like the tree in autumn, beautiful in your letting go. Don't mourn the falling leaves. Celebrate the space they create for new growth. Live like the ocean, constantly releasing waves that return as new ones. Live like the wind, free of form, yet touching everything. Letting go is not the end of love, of effort, or of hope. It is the purification of all three. It strips away illusion until all that remains is truth. When you finally let go, life no longer feels like something to endure. It becomes something to experience, fully, fearlessly, wholeheartedly. You begin to see that peace is not found at the end of the path. Peace is the path. To let go is to walk lightly, to breathe deeply, to love without fear, and to trust that you are exactly where you are meant to be. And perhaps that is the greatest secret of all. The moment you truly let go, life starts working for you, not against you. Because the universe was never testing your strength, it was testing your trust. And when you pass that test, life reveals its deepest truth, that nothing real can ever be lost, and nothing meant for you will ever need to be chased. Let go, breathe, live. This is how freedom begins. This is how peace finds you. This is how life unfolds, perfectly, effortlessly, beautifully, when you finally stop holding on. 8. The universe aligns when you finally trust its flow. There comes a moment on your journey when you've tried everything, every plan, every idea, every attempt to control outcomes, and yet nothing moves. You pray, you push, you wait, and still the path ahead remains unclear. That moment isn't punishment, it's an invitation. It's life whispering, "Stop fighting the flow." Because the universe does not move according to force, it moves according to faith. The moment you let go of control and begin to trust, life rearranges itself in ways you could never have imagined. This is the secret rhythm of existence. Everything aligns the moment you stop trying to control it and start allowing it. Trusting the flow doesn't mean sitting still and doing nothing. It means doing your part with sincerity, then surrendering the rest to a wisdom higher than your own. It's the realization that there are forces working for you, unseen, silent, precise. The same intelligence that keeps the planet spinning and the oceans breathing is also guiding your every step. You may not always see it, but you are always being carried. Every delay, every closed door, every detour is part of that greater choreography. When you begin to trust that unseen order, peace replaces panic and alignment replaces struggle. Think of a river again. You can spend your whole life trying to swim upstream, exhausting yourself against the current, believing that's the way to success, to safety, to happiness. But the river is already moving in the direction of your growth. When you stop resisting, you start flowing. You find that the current doesn't carry you away from your destiny, it carries you toward it. The current is your destiny. The resistance was only the illusion that you ever had to do it all alone. So many people live in constant tension because they cannot release their grip on how things should be. They create endless plans, worry about every outcome, and then wonder why they feel exhausted. Trust is terrifying for the mind because it requires surrendering the illusion of control. But the soul already knows how to trust. It was born trusting. You didn't have to remind your heart to beat this morning. You didn't force the sun to rise or the air to enter your lungs. Life has always been happening for you. You just forgot. When you start to trust again, the noise in your mind begins to quiet. You stop overthinking and start observing. You realize that not everything needs your interference. The right opportunities don't require chasing. They appear when your energy matches their frequency. The right people don't need convincing. They recognize your presence when you've become who you truly are. This is alignment, when your inner vibration matches the life that's meant for you. And alignment only happens when you stop controlling and start allowing. Trust doesn't mean everything will be easy. It means you'll be at peace, even when it's hard. You'll understand that every difficulty carries hidden wisdom. Every storm purifies you. Every loss brings you closer to what's real. You begin to see the perfection in imperfection. When plans fail, you no longer fall apart. You lean in, whispering, "Show me the lesson here." You stop treating change as chaos and start seeing it as choreography. The very things you thought were obstacles turn out to be bridges to something greater. Life has always known what you need better than you do. Think of the times you didn't get what you wanted, only to realize later that it would have destroyed your peace. Think of the people who left, clearing space for someone who truly saw you. Think of the setbacks that forced you to grow in strength and clarity. Trust is built by remembering. Remembering that you have survived every single thing that once terrified you. Remembering that even when you thought you were falling apart, something unseen was guiding you back together. Trust is not a feeling, it's a practice. Every morning you can choose to wake up and say, "I don't need to know everything today. I just need to trust the next step." You might not see the whole staircase, but you can always see the next stone. The mind wants to plan 10 moves ahead, but the heart only asks you to take one. The more you trust that single step, the more the path reveals itself. And one day, you'll look back and see how perfectly every moment was aligned, how every seeming detour was a divine redirection. The universe mirrors your energy. When you radiate fear, it gives you reasons to be afraid. When you radiate faith, it gives you reasons to believe. Trust changes your frequency. You move from desperation to magnetism. You begin attracting, not chasing. You begin flowing, not forcing. Life starts to meet you halfway because you finally stopped blocking it with your resistance. It's like opening the windows after years of darkness. Suddenly light rushes in, not because it wasn't there before, but because you finally allowed it. Trusting the flow also means trusting your timing. You may not be where you want to be yet, but you are always exactly where you need to be for your growth. Every season serves its purpose. The waiting season teaches patience. The breaking season teaches surrender. The blooming season teaches gratitude. Nothing is wasted. Not your pain, not your confusion, not your detours. Everything is part of your unfolding. The moment you accept that, you no longer rush life. You harmonize with it. You'll begin to notice that when you're aligned with trust, coincidences become constant. You think of someone, and they call. You take a different route and meet the right person. You let go of a dream, and a better one appears. These are not random accidents. They are confirmations, signs that you are no longer fighting against the current of life, but flowing with it. The universe rewards surrender because surrender is alignment with truth. But how do you trust when life hurts? when everything seems to fall apart. That's when trust matters most. Because faith isn't proven in comfort, it's proven in chaos. When the road disappears, and yet you keep walking, you are aligning with something infinite. You're saying, even here, I trust there's meaning. That vibration sends ripples through existence itself. The universe bends to that kind of faith. Because faith is the energy that creates form. It's the bridge between what you can't see and what is meant to be. Letting go and trusting doesn't make you weak. It makes you wise. It teaches you to act without attachment, to love without fear, to live without control. You learn that life is not a puzzle to solve, but a mystery to experience. You begin to laugh at the moments you used to panic over. You see how everything that once felt like an ending was secretly a beginning. You stop asking life for guarantees, and you start giving it gratitude. When you live in trust, your days become lighter. You stop needing to know every detail before moving forward. You find joy in uncertainty, comfort in not knowing, beauty in impermanence. You wake up and say, whatever comes today, I will meet it with an open heart. That openness changes everything. It invites grace. It invites miracles. It invites life to reveal its hidden generosity. Because the truth is, life has always wanted to bless you. It was only waiting for your trust. So take a deep breath. Let go of what you can't control. Stop fighting for what's fading and stop fearing what's coming. The more you trust, the more you'll realize that you were never alone, never abandoned, never forgotten. The universe has been holding your hand all along, guiding you through every twist and turn, leading you exactly where you were meant to be. When you finally trust the flow, you stop surviving and start living. You stop trying to predict and start participating. You realize that life doesn't need your resistance. It needs your presence. The same flow that moves galaxies moves through you. The same rhythm that breathes stars into existence beats within your chest. You are part of that vast intelligence, and it has never made a mistake. Trust the process. Trust the timing. Trust that even your confusion has purpose. You don't need to see the whole story. You just need to say yes to this chapter. The moment you do, the universe rushes in to meet you halfway. Because the truth is, the flow of life was never against you. It was always waiting for you to trust enough to join it. And when you finally do, everything begins to align. The right people, the right opportunities, the right peace. What once felt forced now feels effortless. What once felt impossible now feels inevitable. You stop trying to control life and you begin to co-create with it. You stop fighting your path and you start walking it in grace. This is the art of divine alignment. When you let go, when you surrender, when you finally trust, the universe doesn't take things away from you. It rearranges everything to bring you exactly what your soul has been asking for all along. And that, right there, is when life begins to work for you, not against you. When your heart finally whispers, I am ready, and the universe answers, I've been waiting. 9. The freedom beyond letting go. When you become one with life itself. There comes a sacred turning point in every person's journey. A moment when letting go no longer feels like an act, but a natural state of being. You've released the past, surrendered your illusions of control, trusted the flow, and yet something even deeper begins to unfold. You start to realize that the ultimate freedom doesn't come from letting go of things. It comes from letting go of the self that keeps holding on. This is the highest form of release. When the boundaries between you and life dissolve, and you awaken to the truth that you were never separate from the flow in the first place. At first, letting go feels difficult because the ego resists it. The ego wants identity, ownership, control. It says, this is my life, my story, my pain. But as you continue to walk the path of awareness, you begin to see how small that voice truly is. You start noticing that life was moving perfectly even before you tried to control it, that existence has been unfolding harmoniously long before you were aware of it. The stars did not need your permission to shine. The trees did not ask you how to grow. The ocean doesn't request your approval to rise and fall. And somewhere in that realization, something within you softens. You begin to see that you too are part of this vast, intelligent design, not separate from it, but one with it. The final stage of letting go, then, is to release even the idea of being the one who lets go. Because as long as you're doing the letting go, there's still a you holding on to the act itself. True freedom is when letting go becomes effortless, not something you perform, but something you are. You wake up and breathe with the same rhythm as the world. You move not with resistance, but with harmony. You stop trying to control, not because you've forced yourself to, but because the very impulse to control has melted away. You've remembered what you truly are, awareness itself, vast and unbound. When this realization dawns, life no longer feels like a series of separate events. It becomes one continuous unfolding. You stop dividing the world into good and bad, success and failure, gain and loss. You begin to see that everything, absolutely everything, serves your awakening. What once looked like chaos now feels like choreography. The pain that once broke you now feels like grace in disguise. The people who left no longer evoke bitterness, but gratitude. You realize they came to teach you what could never be taught by comfort. Every heartbreak, every delay, every loss, all of it was life sculpting you, carving away the unnecessary until only truth remained. To live in this state is to live weightlessly. You no longer cling to outcomes because you've seen that the future will take care of itself the same way the present always has. You no longer chase peace because you've discovered that peace was never missing. It was just buried beneath layers of resistance. You no longer fear change because you've learned that what you truly are cannot be changed. The body may age, the mind may wander, circumstances may shift, but the awareness watching it all, the still, silent witness within, remains untouched. Imagine standing by the ocean. You watch the waves rise and fall, some gentle, some violent. The mind identifies with the waves. I am this one, the high one, the low one. But the truth is, you are not the wave. You are the ocean itself. You are the vastness that contains every movement. The waves come and go, but you remain infinite. This is what it means to truly let go, not to deny the waves, but to stop mistaking yourself for them. When you remember that you are the ocean, even the storms no longer frighten you. You allow them to pass, knowing that calm always follows. Many people seek peace through external means, meditation techniques, affirmations, rituals, but the deepest peace arises when you stop seeking altogether. When you stop saying, I must find peace, and instead ask, who is the one seeking? The question itself dissolves the illusion. You see that the seeker was never real, only the stillness underneath was. That stillness is who you've been all along. It was never missing, only overlooked. To reach this understanding, you must pass through the fires of surrender. You will lose things, people, dreams, but each loss will be an unveiling. You'll realize that what you lost was never truly yours, and what's truly yours can never be lost. You'll begin to laugh at life's ironies, not because you've become detached, but because you finally see how perfectly it all fits together. You see the divine humor in the way life teaches, gently, patiently, through both joy and pain. And in that recognition, all fear dissolves. Because how can you fear a life that has always been for you, never against you? There's a deep peace that comes when you stop arguing with reality. You no longer fight what is. You allow, you trust, you flow, you become like the sky, vast enough to hold both storm and sunlight. When pain comes, you don't resist it. You breathe it in and let it move through you. When joy comes, you don't cling to it. You experience it fully, knowing it too will pass. You stop labeling experiences as blessings or curses. They simply become expressions of life, and you are the awareness witnessing it all. This state of inner stillness doesn't mean you withdraw from the world. In fact, you become more alive than ever. Because when you no longer carry the burden of control, you're free to participate fully, to love deeply without fear, to create without expectation, to give without needing to receive. Every moment becomes sacred, not because it's perfect, but because you are fully present within it. You find beauty in small things, the sound of rain, the warmth of sunlight, the texture of silence. You realize that peace was never a distant destination. It was hidden in the simplest moments you once overlooked while chasing something more. The great paradox is that once you stop trying to make life work, it begins to work effortlessly. You stop running after people and the right ones find you. You stop forcing opportunities and the right doors open. You stop chasing happiness and it quietly returns on its own. Because alignment doesn't come through control, it comes through surrender. And surrender doesn't mean giving up. It means giving in to the natural intelligence of life itself. The Buddha once compared enlightenment to the moment when a flame goes out. At first, that sounds like disappearance, as if something ends, but in truth it's not extinction, it's expansion. The flame doesn't die. It merges with the air, becoming part of something greater. That's what happens when you let go completely. You don't disappear. You merge with life itself. You become the wind, the water, the silence, the awareness through which everything moves. You no longer live in the universe. You realize you are the universe, observing itself through human form. And that realization changes everything. You stop saying, life is happening to me, and start saying, life is happening through me. You are no longer the drop that fears the ocean. You are the ocean that finally remembers itself in the drop. The fear of loss vanishes because how can the ocean lose a wave? It's all part of its own movement. You can't lose what you are. You can't be abandoned by what you've always belonged to. That is the highest freedom, the freedom beyond letting go. You live, you love, you experience joy and sorrow, but you are never lost in them. You dance with life, knowing you are both the dancer and the dance. You no longer seek meaning in external things because you've found it within. You no longer look for love because you've become love itself, a silent, steady, ever-giving presence that needs nothing yet gives everything. When you reach this understanding, life ceases to be a struggle and becomes a meditation. Every breath, every step, every encounter becomes an expression of the divine rhythm flowing through you. You stop trying to be someone and simply become no one, a clear vessel through which the light of existence shines without obstruction. That's when you taste true freedom, the freedom of being empty, open, and alive. So if you ever wonder what lies beyond letting go, it's this. It's the moment you realize there was never anything to let go of, because there was never anything separate to begin with. The hand that was holding on and the thing it was holding were both made of the same essence, consciousness itself. You were never the one grasping. You were the awareness watching the grasp. You were never the one falling. You were the sky holding the fall. When you live from this truth, nothing can shake you. The storms still come, but they pass through you. The seasons still change, but you remain. You find serenity not by escaping life, but by becoming so one with it that there's no longer a division between the observer and the observed. You live in constant communion with the present, free, awake, untethered. This is the ultimate liberation, the end of holding on, the end of seeking, the end of separation. You don't rise above life, you merge with it. You don't transcend the world, you finally see it as it is, luminous, fleeting, divine, and as you walk through it, You no longer leave footprints of attachment behind. You move lightly, gracefully, like wind passing through leaves, touching everything, clinging to nothing. And in that lightness, you understand the truth that saints, sages, and mystics have whispered for centuries. To let go completely is to return home. Not to a place, but to a state of being. The state where everything is allowed, everything is loved, everything is seen as sacred. Because when nothing needs to be held, everything can finally be embraced. That is the freedom beyond letting go, the freedom of becoming one with life itself, the moment when you no longer say, "I am living," because you have become life, flowing endlessly, eternally, in peace. 10. The silent power of surrender. When you stop seeking and simply become. At the end of every spiritual path, after all the lessons about patience, trust, and letting go, there remains one final frontier: surrender. Not the kind of surrender that the world teaches, which sounds like defeat or passivity, but the sacred surrender that opens the doorway to liberation, the kind of surrender where the seeking ends and being begins. It's when you stop asking life to fit your plans and begin living as part of its rhythm. It's when you stop trying to shape the world and realize the world is shaping you. Most people think surrender is weakness because they confuse it with giving up. But giving up is born from despair. Surrender is born from wisdom. Giving up says, "I no longer care." Surrender says, "I trust." Giving up is the exhaustion of the ego. Surrender is the awakening of the soul. It's the recognition that there is a deeper intelligence guiding everything, one that has been silently orchestrating your journey long before you became aware of it. Surrender begins where resistance ends. It begins the moment you stop fighting what is and begin flowing with it. You realize that life was never meant to be wrestled into obedience. It was meant to be experienced with awareness. You stop saying, "Why is this happening to me?" and begin saying, "What is life trying to show me through this?" The very energy that once went into resistance transforms into presence. You start to see that surrender isn't something you do. It's something that happens when you finally stop interfering. It's like when the river reaches the ocean. For a long time, the river has been flowing, carving its way through stones and valleys, thinking it must find its way to freedom. But the moment it reaches the ocean, it realizes it was never separate. That it was the ocean all along, simply moving through form. Surrender is that realization, that you were never apart from the divine flow. You were never lost. You were always being carried home. To live in surrender is to live without the weight of expectation. You stop forcing timelines. You stop clinging to outcomes. You stop defining your worth by success or failure. You simply give your best, then release the result into the hands of the universe. You plant the seed and trust that nature will bring the rain. You stop trying to rush the bloom and instead learn to find beauty in the growing. You no longer need to control how everything unfolds because you've realized that everything unfolds perfectly, even when it doesn't look that way from your limited view. There is a deep quiet that follows true surrender, not an empty quiet, but a full one. It's the stillness that comes when the mind finally stops struggling. You no longer live in the constant tension of what if and why not. Instead, your heart whispers, "Whatever comes, I will meet it with love." That is the peace beyond understanding, not because it explains everything, but because it no longer needs to. Surrender doesn't mean you stop acting. It means your actions are guided by intuition rather than fear. You still move, speak, create, love, but you do it with lightness. You act because it feels aligned, not because you're desperate for an outcome. You love because it feels true, not because you're afraid of being alone. You give because your nature is abundance, not because you're hoping for reward. That's the shift, from striving to flowing, from effort to ease, from control to grace. When you surrender, you begin to see the sacred pattern behind every experience. You understand that the delays were protecting you, the heartbreaks were awakening you, the losses were clearing your path. You see that every person who came and left played a divine role in your story. Even your struggles become holy because they burned away the illusions that once blinded you. Nothing is wasted. Every tear was a baptism into deeper awareness. Every setback was a redirection toward your truth. There is an incredible beauty in realizing that life doesn't need your constant management, that you can relax your grip and the world won't fall apart. In fact, it becomes more harmonious. The more you trust, the more life rises to meet you. You begin to feel supported in ways that logic can't explain. The right ideas arrive, the right people appear, and the right doors open. Not because you forced them, but because your energy aligned with them. That's the miracle of surrender. When you stop trying to control life, you become magnetic to everything meant for you. In surrender, you also release the idea of separation. You stop seeing yourself as an isolated being struggling in an indifferent universe. You begin to feel the interconnectedness of everything. The air you breathe, the heartbeat within you, the sunlight on your skin, all of it becomes sacred communication. You start to understand that existence is not random, it's relational. Every breath you take is a conversation with the universe. A reminder that you are part of something infinite, and that infinity flows through you with every moment you allow. The ultimate surrender is the surrender of identity, to let go not only of possessions or attachments, but of the image of who I think I am, because the ego, this small, ever-anxious self, is the last barrier between you and freedom. When you stop clinging to your story, your achievements, your pain, your reputation, your past, you dissolve into something vaster. You realize that you were never the story, only the awareness behind it. You are not the clouds of experience. You are the sky that holds them. That's why in deep surrender you no longer fear death, because you understand that death is not an ending, it's a return. The waves go back to the sea, the flame merges with air, and the soul returns to its source. The one who feared loss was never real to begin with. When you surrender completely, even death becomes another form of transformation, another breath in the eternal rhythm of existence. In this state, life becomes a constant meditation. Every act, walking, breathing, speaking, resting, becomes an expression of harmony. You live without anxiety about the future or regret about the past. You inhabit each moment fully because there is nowhere else to be. Every sunrise feels like grace, every night like surrender. You no longer need to chase enlightenment because you've realized that enlightenment isn't something to attain, it's what remains when you stop resisting what already is. Surrender reveals a simple truth. Life was never something to control, it was something to trust. All your suffering came not from what happened, but from your insistence that it should have been different. When you release that insistence, life doesn't suddenly become perfect. It becomes peaceful. You stop trying to escape your humanity and instead embrace it as part of your divinity. You see that both joy and sorrow, gain and loss, are expressions of the same sacred pulse that animates everything. To live in surrender is to live as love. Not the fragile love that depends on conditions or returns, but the pure love that flows from existence itself. It's the love that says yes to life in all its forms, in pleasure and in pain, in clarity and in confusion. You stop saying, I love this, but not that, and you start saying, I love what is. That is the highest form of faith. Not believing that everything will go your way, but knowing that whatever way it goes, it will lead you home. When you reach this stage, you realize there is nothing more to seek. The seeker dissolves into the sought. The journey merges with the destination. You don't awaken one day with fireworks or fanfare. You simply wake up one morning, look around and realize that nothing has changed, except you see everything differently. The ordinary becomes miraculous, the simple becomes sacred, and you understand that this moment, this breath, this being, was the enlightenment you were searching for all along. That is the silent power of surrender. It doesn't shout, it whispers. It doesn't conquer, it dissolves. It doesn't demand answers, it rests in mystery. When you stop fighting life, life stops fighting you. When you stop seeking peace, peace finds you. When you stop clinging to control, everything begins to align. You don't need to force the path anymore because you have become the path, living, breathing, and glowing with the quiet grace of someone who has finally remembered who they are. And in that remembrance, you understand the final truth. There was never anything to surrender to, because there was never anything separate from you. You are the ocean that became the wave, the infinite that became the finite, the timeless that chose to dance in time. Surrender, then, is simply returning home, to yourself, to life, to the oneness that has always been. So, breathe deeply, feel the stillness beneath all motion. Trust the flow that has carried stars, rivers, and souls since the beginning of time. Let go, not with effort, but with ease. Fall, not into chaos, but into grace, because when you finally stop seeking, you realize you were never lost. You were always here. You were always held. You were always free. 11. The still point of everything, when you become the quiet center of existence. There is a place deep within you where everything is still, a space untouched by the noise of thought, the rise and fall of emotion, the chaos of the world. It has no shape, no boundaries, no sound, yet it is more real than anything else you've ever known. This is the still point, the quiet center of existence. It's not something you must find, it's something you must remember. Because it has always been there, waiting beneath the layers of fear, desire, and constant motion. You've spent most of your life moving, chasing dreams, escaping pain, holding on, letting go, learning, unlearning. You've tried to change yourself, control outcomes, and fix the past. You've explored love, loss, faith, and surrender. And now, as the waves of experience begin to settle, something new begins to dawn. You realize that peace was never about reaching a destination. It was about realizing that the destination was within you all along. The world was never outside of you. It was always a reflection of your state of being. When you are still, the world is still. When you are peaceful, life mirrors peace. This stillness is not emptiness, it's fullness. It's the quiet hum beneath all creation, the silence between each heartbeat, the awareness watching everything unfold without judgment. It doesn't reject life, it contains it. It doesn't resist change, it absorbs it. When you sink into this stillness, you don't escape the world, you see it more clearly. You begin to notice the sacred rhythm in everything. The inhale and exhale of the ocean, the movement of clouds, the flicker of a candle flame. You see that nothing is random. Everything breathes in harmony with this unseen pulse. The great paradox is that you've been searching for peace while standing in the middle of it. Like a fish searching for the ocean, you've been swimming in what you've always been. The mind loves to complicate, to seek, to analyze, but the stillness needs no effort. It only asks for one thing: your attention. When you give your full attention to the present moment, not as a concept, but as direct experience, the mind quiets on its own. Thought becomes like ripples on the surface of a vast, calm lake. You can still see the ripples, but they no longer disturb the depths. The Buddha once described enlightenment as the extinction of craving, not the end of desire itself, but the end of the need to chase desire. In stillness, this becomes true. You can still move, dream, and act, but the obsession to control outcomes dissolves. You live with intention, but without tension. You care deeply, but you no longer cling. You love fully, but you do not fear loss. This balance of deep engagement and inner detachment is the mark of true mastery. It's not withdrawal from life, it's participation without resistance. In this state, everything becomes meditation. You don't need to sit cross-legged to find presence. Walking becomes meditation. Breathing becomes meditation. Listening becomes meditation. You could be in the middle of a busy street, surrounded by noise, and still remain inwardly silent. The outer world continues its movement, but you stay centered, like the axis of a spinning wheel. The wheel turns, but the center remains unmoved. That's what it means to live from the still point. At first, it may seem impossible to stay centered when the storms of life hit, but storms don't disturb the ocean's depths, only its surface. Likewise, the deeper you go into yourself, the less life can shake you. You may still feel sadness, anger, or fear, but they pass through you instead of possessing you. You become like the sky, spacious enough to allow every cloud, yet untouched by any of them. The sky doesn't chase the sun or resist the storm, it holds both with equal grace. The still point is also where love transforms. The love you once sought through attachment now radiates naturally from your being. You no longer need to take love, you become love. You no longer seek validation, you are validation. Because you've discovered that love is not an emotion that comes and goes, it's the essence of awareness itself. When you rest in that awareness, love flows through you effortlessly, touching everyone and everything around you without needing to claim or control it. When you begin to live from this still center, you notice that time feels different. You no longer rush, you no longer chase the future or replay the past. The mind's timeline begins to dissolve, and what remains is the eternal now, the only place where life truly exists. In that timeless awareness, every moment feels complete. The smallest things, a falling leaf, a child's laughter, the scent of rain, become profound. You realize that nothing is ordinary, every moment is sacred when seen through the eyes of stillness. The ego cannot survive in stillness because the ego feeds on motion, on problems to solve, comparisons to make, identities to protect. When you become still, the ego loses its grip. You stop living through the story of I am this or I am that. You see those as temporary costumes worn by consciousness. You stop needing to prove your worth or defend your opinions. You no longer chase approval, because you understand that what you truly are has nothing to prove and no one to convince. It simply is. This is the birth of true freedom, when your happiness no longer depends on conditions. You stop saying, I'll be at peace when, and instead realize, I am peace now. You stop postponing joy for a future that never arrives and begin living from the fullness of this moment. You see that life's perfection lies not in its predictability, but in its presence. Everything that exists right now, even the things you once resisted, is part of the divine whole. When you live from the still point, fear begins to fade, because fear is born from identification with form, with what can be lost or changed. But when you rest in the awareness that witnesses all form, you realize that nothing real can ever be lost. The body may age, possessions may fade, relationships may change, but the awareness that experiences them remains unbroken. It was there when you were a child, it is here now, and it will remain when the body returns to the earth. That awareness, that stillness, is what you truly are. And the beauty of this realization is that it transforms how you engage with the world. You no longer seek permanence in impermanent things. You no longer fear endings because you understand that endings are simply transformations. You move through life lightly, gracefully, like a leaf carried by the wind, fully participating, yet never entangled. You give your best in every moment, and when the moment passes, you let it go without regret. To live like this is to live awake. You see how most of humanity is asleep, chasing, fearing, clinging, running, all because they've forgotten the stillness beneath their thoughts. But you no longer judge them because you understand. You were once there too. Compassion blossoms naturally because you see yourself in everyone, each person, just another wave searching for the ocean they already belong to. When you rest in stillness, even death loses its power. Because you realize that death is not the opposite of life, it's the opposite of birth. Life has no opposite, it simply is. It flows endlessly, changing forms but never ceasing. You are that flow, the consciousness that witnesses beginnings and endings without beginning or end. The body may dissolve, the story may close, but the awareness remains, infinite, untouched, eternal. And in that knowing, something extraordinary happens. Gratitude arises, not for specific things, but for existence itself. You begin to bow inwardly to life in all its forms, to the laughter and the tears, to the creation and the destruction, to the light and the darkness. You understand that everything is part of one eternal movement, the universe expressing itself through infinite experiences, and you are both the observer and the observed, the dreamer and the dream. That is the final letting go, not of things, not of people, not even of identity, but of separation itself. You stop saying, "I am in the universe," and begin to whisper, "I am the universe." You stop seeing God as something above or beyond and realize that God breathes through you, as you, in every heartbeat and every breath. The search ends because the seeker dissolves into the seen. So when the world grows noisy again and your mind begins to spin with worry, remember this. Beneath the noise, the still point is always there. You don't have to earn it. You don't have to travel to find it. You just have to stop long enough to feel it. Close your eyes. Listen not to the world, but to the silence beneath it. Feel the pulse of your being. Calm, vast, eternal. That silence is who you are. That stillness is home. And once you've tasted that, nothing external can ever truly disturb you again. You walk through life with quiet power, with gentle eyes, with an open heart. You love without fear. You give without keeping score. You live without trying to escape or improve every moment. You simply are. You've become the calm in the middle of every storm, the still point of everything. In that place, life doesn't just work for you. Life is you. The universe doesn't just guide you. You move as its breath. There is no more holding, no more striving, no more needing to be anyone or anything. There is only this: presence, awareness, peace. The circle closes where it began, and in that eternal stillness, you finally understand what it means to be free. 12. The eternal witness, when you awaken as the universe itself. There comes a moment after every storm, after every letting go, after every lesson, when you finally stop searching, not because you've given up, but because you've realized there was never anything to find. You've walked through fear, through surrender, through love and loss, through silence and flow, and now all that remains is awareness, vast, infinite, unshaken. You begin to see with a clarity that feels otherworldly yet intimately familiar. You were never the traveler on the path. You were the path itself. You were never the seeker. You were what was being sought. Everything that ever happened, every joy, every heartbreak, every triumph, every failure, was not random. It was the universe remembering itself through you. Every laugh, every tear, every moment of awe was life whispering, "I am here." And now, as the dust of experience settles, you begin to perceive the truth so simple that words can barely hold it. You are not a being moving through the universe. You are the universe moving as a being. This is the awakening beyond awakening, the point where the wave no longer believes it's separate from the ocean. You see that the same energy that births galaxies is the same pulse that moves through your veins. The same stillness that holds mountains holds your heart. The same intelligence that orbits planets has been guiding your every step. And with that recognition, all questions vanish. Because the answer to every question, who am I? Why am I here? What is the purpose? Collapses into a single realization. You are that. The mind, for years, tried to understand the mystery. It studied philosophies, prayed to heavens, chased enlightenment, built ideas of God. But the mind can only circle around truth. It can never grasp it. Because truth is not an object to be understood. It is the subject through which all understanding occurs. It is you, the awareness behind every experience. You can't see it because you are it, just as the eye cannot see itself. Once this realization dawns, the world doesn't disappear. It becomes luminous. The ordinary transforms into the divine. Every sound, every color, every breath shimmers with sacredness. The air feels alive. The trees look back at you as if they recognize you. Because they do. The separation dissolves. You no longer say, that tree or that sky. You simply see everything as a reflection of your own being. You are no longer in the world is in you. This awakening is not loud. It doesn't come with fireworks or visions. It arrives quietly, like dawn, slow, golden, certain. One morning, you simply wake up and feel no urge to chase, no fear to run, no thought to control. The mind is still there, thoughts still come, life still moves, but none of it disturbs you anymore. You watch it all the way the sky watches clouds drift by, with compassion, with patience, with infinite space. The great masters often said that enlightenment is the end of becoming and the beginning of being. You finally understand what they meant. For so long, you were trying to become something better, wiser, stronger, freer. But the moment you awaken, you realize you already are everything you've ever wanted to be. You've been complete from the beginning. Every lesson, every loss, every fall was not leading you to something else. It was leading you back to yourself. In this state, love no longer feels like an emotion. It feels like existence itself. You don't fall in love. You expand into it. You love everything because you are everything. The sunlight touching your skin is your own warmth returning to you. The laughter of a stranger is your joy reflected back. Even pain, even sorrow, they too become sacred because you see them as expressions of life's wholeness. You no longer divide the world into right and wrong, good and bad. You simply witness, with tenderness, with awe. There's a deep humility that comes with this awakening. You realize that the universe has never needed your help to function. The stars didn't ask for your permission to shine. The seasons didn't wait for your schedule to change. Everything has always been unfolding perfectly, with or without your intervention. You see now that your only role was to be, to observe, to experience, to awaken. That is enough. That has always been enough. The more deeply you rest in this awareness, the less you identify with the body or the mind. You understand that they are instruments, beautiful, temporary vessels for consciousness to experience itself in form. The body breathes, moves, and one day returns to dust. The mind thinks, learns, and one day grows silent. But the awareness that sees all of it, that luminous, eternal presence, it never came, and it will never go. It is the same awareness that looked through your eyes as a child, that watches your life now, and that will continue after the form dissolves. And so fear vanishes completely, because fear exists only for the one who believes they can be lost. Once you know you cannot be lost, fear has no meaning. You are the endless sky. How could you fear the passing cloud? You are the ocean. How could you fear a wave? You are eternity itself, momentarily pretending to be human. Death loses its shadow. Life loses its weight. What remains is only lightness, a freedom beyond description. Living in this realization does not make you detached from the world. It makes you deeply intimate with it. You feel everything, perhaps even more than before, but now it doesn't hurt. It moves through you like wind through branches. You smile more easily. You forgive more naturally. You laugh at things you once took too seriously. You no longer carry opinions like weapons. You speak gently, live simply, love openly, because you see that every soul you meet is another face of the same infinite self. In this awakened state, service arises naturally, not out of duty, but out of love. You help not because you feel obligated, but because it's your nature, just as the sun shines without asking to be thanked. You give because you overflow. You teach because you cannot help but share the light. You live as an embodiment of peace, not as a performance, but as a reflection of what you've discovered within. Time itself becomes softer. You don't cling to moments, you flow with them. Every ending feels gentle. Every beginning feels natural. You no longer measure life in years or achievements, but in depth of presence. A single breath, fully felt, becomes eternity. A single glance at the sky feels like prayer. You stop asking how long life will last and start marveling at how infinite it already is. The great irony is that awakening doesn't make you special. It makes you ordinary, but in the most beautiful way. You no longer need to stand out because you see yourself in everything. You can sit quietly on a park bench, watching leaves dance, and feel more joy than a lifetime of striving ever gave you. You are no longer chasing experiences. You are the experience itself. This is the completion of the circle, the end of seeking, the end of striving, the end of separation. You began the journey trying to fix the world. Now you see that the world was never broken. You tried to find peace in others. Now you see that peace was never missing. You searched for the divine outside. Now you realize it was within you all along, breathing, watching, waiting. The final realization is the simplest of all. There was never anything wrong with you. You were never unworthy, never behind, never incomplete. Every step, every stumble, every heartbreak was part of your perfection. You didn't need to become the light. You only needed to stop believing you were the darkness. When you awaken as the universe itself, you don't become more, you become less. Less of the me that tries to control, less of the mind that fears loss, less of the should that creates pressure. What's left is just being pure, radiant, eternal. You move through the world like the breeze, touching everything, clinging to nothing. You live, you laugh, you love, and when the time comes, you let go again. Easily, naturally, without sorrow, because you know that what you truly are can never be lost. In the end, awakening is not about escaping the world. It's about seeing it clearly, not through the lens of fear or desire, but through the eyes of eternity. You look at the same world, the same people, the same sky, and everything shines differently. Because now you know, it's all you. Every face, every voice, every grain of sand. There is nothing outside you and nothing missing within. And when you breathe your last breath in this form, you will not vanish. You will simply expand, like a wave returning to the sea, like a flame merging with light. The play continues, the dance goes on, and consciousness finds new forms to explore. Because the story of existence has no end. It is one eternal song, playing through infinite instruments. You are that song. You are that silence. You are that eternal witness that has been watching since the beginning of time. You are the dreamer and the dream, the drop and the ocean, the seeker and the sought. You are life itself, awakening, remembering, loving, and endlessly becoming aware of itself. And so, the journey that began with letting go ends in oneness. The one who was searching dissolves into the vastness of what always was. And from that stillness, a whisper arises, not as thought, but as truth. I was never lost. I was never separate. I was never becoming. I have always been. And that is the final awakening, not a destination, but a return to what was always here. The eternal witness, infinite and unbroken, smiling quietly as the dance of life continues, within itself, as itself, forever. There comes a moment, quiet, sacred, beyond time, when everything you've ever held on to, everything you've ever chased, everything you've ever feared, dissolves into stillness. You realize that life was never asking you to control it. It was asking you to trust it. Every loss, every delay, every unanswered prayer was not a rejection. It was redirection. Every heartbreak was not the end of love. It was love transforming you, teaching you how to see beyond the surface, how to feel beyond the illusion, how to remember what you've always been. You've walked through the landscapes of your own becoming. You've carried the weight of your past until your shoulders trembled. You've surrendered your control to the river of existence. You've learned that peace begins not when the world calms down, but when your heart does. You've discovered that detachment is not coldness, but clarity, the ability to love without fear and to live without chains. You've faced resistance and found that it wasn't the world holding you back, it was you holding on. And somewhere along that long, silent road, you began to soften. You began to let go, not out of defeat, but out of trust. You stopped asking life for guarantees. You stopped begging the future for comfort. You stopped fighting what already was. And in that surrender, something miraculous happened. Life started moving with you, not against you. The same world that once felt heavy began to flow effortlessly. The same mind that once doubted everything began to rest in awareness. You found that the greatest freedom wasn't in getting what you wanted. It was in realizing you didn't need it to be whole. You learned that what is meant for you never needs chasing. You discovered that letting go is not an ending. It's the beginning of living fully. Every time you released something, a plan, a person, a version of yourself, life rushed in to fill the space with something more real, more aligned, more beautiful. Through these lessons you grew, not upward, but inward. You began to see that peace isn't a destination, but a return. The path of letting go brought you home, to presence, to awareness, to the eternal now. You found that surrender was never about giving up. It was about opening up. You stopped looking for light and realized you were the light, covered by layers of noise, fear, and attachment that were never truly you. And when everything finally fell silent, when you no longer needed answers, when even the questions dissolved, that's when the truth emerged. That's when you remembered that the universe was never outside of you. It was never separate. The same stillness that moves the stars moves through your breath. The same intelligence that gives life to galaxies beats quietly within your chest. You are not a fragment of creation. You are creation itself, aware of itself. In that awareness, you found peace, not the fragile peace that depends on circumstance, but the eternal peace that exists beyond birth and death, beyond joy and sorrow. You realized that nothing real can ever be lost, and nothing meant for you will ever need to be forced. You began to live lightly, laugh freely, love deeply, because you finally understood that the purpose of life was never perfection. It was presence. So here you stand now, at the still point of everything. The storms may come, but they can no longer move you. The world may shift, but you remain unmoved, aware, infinite. You have become the calm in the chaos, the silence in the sound, the eye of the storm. You have become the witness, watching life unfold, knowing you are both the watcher and the watched. Letting go was never about losing control. It was about remembering who has been in control all along. Life was never something to fix. It was something to feel. The universe was never distant. It was whispering through every experience. You are me. You always were. And so the journey ends where it began, in stillness, in love, in awareness. The seeker dissolves. The striving ends. Only presence remains. You are not becoming, you are being. You are not searching, you are remembering. You are not lost, you are home. The river has returned to the ocean. The wave has remembered it was the sea. The light has realized it was never separate from the source. And in that eternal moment, the moment beyond all beginnings and endings, you finally understand. You were never holding on to life. Life was holding you. Always, silently, lovingly, completely.